Well, good evening to everyone. We're here once again for Family and Beyond. I'm Adrian Starks, and this is my bride, Shondi Starks.
Hello, everyone.
And we are going to be talking tonight about navigating differences. This is a subject matter that touches every couple, regardless of who. Well, let's say it touches every couple. Some of the couples don't survive it, and as a result of not surviving it, they may not have gained the time to appreciate the variable nature, the important aspect of appreciating differences in order that they might navigate them well. Now, Shondi and I have our fair share of differences, and we sort of alluded to this last week in our conversation last week. But what we want to do is deal with it more definitively, more directly tonight. So, Shondi, go ahead and greet the people and share what you want to share.
Hello, people. We're excited to be here once again.
Yes.
And don't know why we're looking so dark tonight, but that's okay.
Yeah, we are experiencing a little bit of equipment differential as opposed to what we've experienced in the past, but we're going to navigate it well, like we're going to navigate these differences.
Right. Very good, sir.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what do we know about men and women and what they bring by virtue of gender differentiation?
Well, what did I forget the author of the name, but the book
is Gary Chapman?
No, not that one. Men are from Mars
and women are from Venus. That's Dr. Gary Chapman.
That's him too?
Yeah.
Oh, he's killing the game.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Okay.
Well, that's one of the.
Differences.
That's one of the differences because Adrian.
There's one who will trust and another one who will doubt. You figure out which one is the doubting Thomas.
But that is one of the differences, and I'm not the only one who notes that. It's your girls, because Adrian will fact check later. If he feels it, he'll sometimes say it when he says it at all. I'm off topic.
Completely, but who am I to complain?
So true. But there's some very different. There's a variety of differences. Where do you want to start?
Let's just establish why understanding these differences matter.
Because I think one of the main reasons is because the way we process things differently.
Uh-huh.
How we respond, how we process, how we react. A lot has to do with our makeup and how we're wired, and that there's a quite a bit of difference there, and it can cause a lot of problems because of misunderstandings that aren't necessary.
Yeah, it'll lead to conflict, and conflict can lead to casualties. And we have many relationship casualties that I think didn't necessarily have to be a casualty. And if you don't know what a casualty is, that means they suffered a terminal end. And I think some of those terminations could have been avoided if they had been able to appreciate the language that each other was speaking through, and
or the lack of language.
Or the lack of language. I'm gonna let you speak to that in a moment.
Okay.
All right. Or the lack of language, or how in the world you might be able to put the pieces together, the jigsaw pieces, You know, a lot of times we're trying to jam pieces to fit, and they're not the right piece. And the reason why we have the wrong piece is because we're not effectively navigating differences. So we said that our differences may cause us to process and respond to situations differently. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
In what way do you notice that might take place?
I mean, a lot of times, you know, and you all please excuse our generalities, okay? We're not trying to cause issues, but what we're saying, and this isn't just tonight, but anytime that we speak, we're talking about like the majority. We're not talking about those unicorns. We're not talking about the statistical outliers, but on average, it is said that women are a little bit more emotional. So we process with our emotions, and men can tend to be a little bit more rational. So they process things with their processor, with their brain, and not necessarily their feelings.
Yeah. And so the differences, excuse me, the generalities, science speaks in generalities. We will always have statistical outliers that may not, that a particular general truth may not apply to. But nonetheless, it's critically important that we appreciate the generalities as we try to move the masses into wholeness, well-being, and success. So we know that women are far more inclined to use their words and express themselves, it's said, more effectively than men. And even if they don't necessarily express themselves with precision, they are going to give more verbiage. They're gonna say more, right? And when that is not appreciated, it can produce frustration. So let's talk about one of the ways that women get frustrated.
Women, because men use half the amount of words as women, a lot of times men don't give feedback, or they give feedback with like one word. And I know one of my frustrations has been when I am very worked up about something and you are nonverbal, which is really challenging for the two of us, because my husband is a very verbal person. I mean, he uses his words a lot. Like you use a lot more words, and you're very descriptive. You even go out of your way to use words that people don't typically understand. And you have to go back and even use more words to define a word that is not commonly used. And then when I am emotional and have something that I really want to discuss, you forget all of your big vocabulary words.
Yeah. So this is an example of when your vocation is thrown back at you, right? It's almost like, I wish that I was unemployed right now.
No, don't say that. Don't say that, because then we'll have a lot.
Otherwise employed. I didn't mean unemployed. I meant otherwise employed.
Right.
But yeah, so I'm trying to think if I need to respond to that or just say amen.
Well, I would love for you to respond to it, because our case is a little bit unique because you are so vocacious. What is that the word?
Yeah, see, you can't.
See, no, I can't even use it.
That's not it.
That's not a word that he would use.
No, it's not, because that's not a word. But I'm not going to feed you tonight on that one either. That is not a word. I won't tell you.
What is the?
I'm not going to tell you. No, I'm not going to tell you. I will not, because you're using it against me.
It's gonna bother me the rest of this time.
That's good. Let it simmer.
He's very verbose, very verbose. That's another word for the vocacious or whatever.
So one of the things that happens when we fail to navigate difference well is that we react as opposed to respond. We react as opposed to respond. And the distinction between reacting and responding would seem to be rather self-explanatory, but I'm going to give Shandi an opportunity to expound on what we mean by reacting versus responding, because I'm going to give her a chance to be verbose.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I think when you react, a lot of times we react and we have would it be an emotional response?
Yes.
Okay. And then when we respond, you're thinking through and considering what it is we're trying to say.
Absolutely.
And where it can be, go ahead.
No, you finish.
Where it can be problematic is because a lot of times we respond and we respond with words or actions that can't be taken back.
Yes. Yeah. And the responding is appreciating. It's an intentional effort to appreciate the difference, as opposed to being emotional in our reaction to what we are getting or not getting. Okay. And so when we talk about reacting versus responding, I wonder if you can relate, if some of you can appreciate the effects of reacting because of differences that you have with your mate. If so, feel free to, give a thumbs up in the chat or comment in the group, because again, I think this is something that hamstrings a lot of couples where they fail to appreciate their differences with a intentional effort to not necessarily make them agree with you or do what you want, but necessarily know from what vantage point they're coming. Go ahead. You chuckle because you have something else to.
Because I still can't come up with that word. I'm just laughing at myself. Like I'm just sitting here looking like an idiot because I can't come up with my word and trying not to be emotional and trying to.
If you weren't throwing daggers at me just now, I would come to your aid. But since that was an intentional dig, I'm going to let you sit in it and enjoy this moment.
So, Adrian, you just fed me.
Go ahead.
Because that's what I feel like you do when we're in an argument.
Okay.
And instead of feeding me or telling or just using your words to have an answer or a response, you withhold.
Okay.
And that's so where you won't give me the word right now.
Okay.
Is exactly what you do. A lot of times when I need to talk something out and you withhold, and it seems it's just trifling.
Okay.
It's just trifling. That's a word.
Well, it is a word.
Define that.
It is a word. I'm not defining anything. It is a word, but I don't know if it's an accurate assessment of my heart. That's not my intent. I think we're going through a therapy session right before you all, okay? And I'm hoping that it's going to be helpful. Maybe not. I don't know. But it's not that. What I am walking out in those moments is an attempt at calculation, to be very careful that I don't say the wrong thing. And one of the things, and here, this is a phrase that you have used to me, about me to other people. A lot of times my husband is talking and he's thinking out loud. And so you're advising some people to not necessarily run with everything that I say,
True.
right?
Yeah.
And so I have been also trying to improve in that particular space.
In
And
every workplace but with me.
by being careful and not think out loud.
Yeah. Or I think a lot of times if you just used a few words like Shandi, I need to think about it right now. But a lot of times it looks like you have lost your tongue
Mm.
and you refuse to use it. And so I don't know if you are fully understanding the gravity of what is happening in my world. And so a lot of times it feels to me like you're indifferent.
Okay.
And that irritates me. And sometimes it's hurtful.
Okay. Well, it's hurtful to also be held at the stake for saying something that you didn't necessarily think all the way through.
Uh-huh.
And then it could be proved to be hurtful if I say something out of impulse.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I don't make that, you ought to know this about me by now. I don't make that a habit of being impulsive with my mouth. That tends to be a feminine trait. Would you disagree?
No.
And so I'm trying my best to withhold my words. There are times that I think something, but I don't necessarily say it. Mm-hmm. And I think that can be a very challenging flaw to say everything you think.
Correct. And what he wants to say it's like you could learn a lot, because a lot of times if I think it comes out my mouth.
So this is one of the,
it's often the truth.
This is a very clear line of demarcation between men and women. A lot of times, communication proves to be one of the most challenging, if not the most challenging aspect of relational dynamics.
Mm-hmm. But what could we do? I mean, because we don't want to just leave them with our issues. We want to give them, like, what could we do differently to understand the differences? I understand that you're not reactional, that you're gonna process, and
Right.
And that you understand that if it's something weighing on me, that I need to at least get it out, mm-hmm. and need to be heard. So what can we do?
You said something earlier that you can give a preemptive comment of, I'm thinking through this and I'm going to get back to you later. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. The Bible says that we should live with our wives with knowledge. And this is something that I think is advisable, to grow in the knowledge of your spouse, to understand their distinctions, and then meet them at a space where it gives them the support that they need, while as you navigate to get to the place that you feel you need to be in order to have a healthy exchange in the interim. That's all I can think of.
Mm-hmm. And what can
do you have something that you want to add to that?
No, I think that's real important. I mean, I'm being totally serious. Now, what could I do better?
Not say everything that comes to your mind. And pray David's prayer.
Put a guard over my mouth.
Place a guard at my mouth. Mm-hmm. That's just, so we're talking about just one issue tonight, but we want to acknowledge that there are many differences.
Yeah, and we'll come back, right? We'll come back and talk about some of those others, but this is a big one.
This is a big one.
Mm-hmm. This is a big
this in terms of communication, because again, sex, money, and communication are the three leading factors that leads to collateral damage in relationships, in marriages, and so on and so forth. And so, as you can see, our family dynamic is not perfect, and yet God has graced us to endure. We pray that same thing can be true for you. What do you think is the biggest credit to why we were able to overcome this? We've already said it, react versus respond. Do you think that would apply in our situation the most, or is there some other grace at work?
Yeah, there's some other things that were like, first of all, Adrian had to understand that I have a neurodivergent issue, right? And, I mean, seriously, like, so I have had to work with a coach to help me, because a lot of times I just have to get it out. And it's just because my mind, the way my mind processes things, and he understands it. Because I'll never forget one time we were driving home from church and I needed to tell you about something. You're like, just wait. And I was like, but I need to talk about it now. And I was like,
because the kids were in the car.
I know, but I was talking softly, and they weren't paying any attention, but I just needed to get it out.
How many times did you think they weren't paying attention and they were? True. But go ahead.
But I was like, I just really need to talk about this now. And I just blurted it out. And you were like, you really can't help yourself, can you? Just really can't help. And at that time I couldn't, but I'm much better. I've had to learn. And let me tell you a little, like I get coaching and things like that, but recently I learned how to take a deep breath. And there's a book that I'm supposed to be reading to help me do this even better, but to take a deep breath and to say, does this need to be said? Does this need to be said now? And does this need to be said by me? And I'm going to tell you, the answer is almost always 100% yes, yes, yes. But by taking 3 deep breaths, it gives my processor a little bit more time to say it without as much emotion. And that's what I've adopted, and I'm going with it.
And listen, whenever emotion is the primary push in a moment of difference, in a moment of challenge, there's going to be some regret.
Right.
And so that's one of the key reasons why we want you to respond as opposed to react. Because the responding is intended to be far more calculated than the reactionary impulse that most of us are driven by. And so Shondi's 3-step question that it's intended to serve as stop signs. But as you can see, for her, they need to be stop lights. Because you know how we drift by stop signs, and when the blue lights flash, we say, I stopped. You didn't. You just kept gliding.
Paused.
You didn't pause. You glided. So pause. No, you glided. And so the stop sign is going to empower you to respond in the spirit that you really want to, as opposed to doing it out of emotion. So again, one of the differences that we need to navigate is how we communicate. How we communicate. Women are far more wordy, even though they may not be as loquacious. I just helped her out.
Thank you.
Hello.
That's the word.
They may not be as loquacious as some of their spouses. Okay.
Thank you, honey.
You thought I was going to leave you lonely. I'm like Jesus, who said, I will never leave you lonely. I will be there to comfort you. I'm comforting you
Does
right
it need
now.
to be said?
Mhm.
Does it need to be said by me? Does it need to be said now? You are not like Jesus. Okay. So, all right, let's end it there.
I need you to know that the Bible does invite you to be like Jesus.
Yes. I mean, but I'm talking about in that case.
All right.
Right.
So,
all right.
Listen, y'all. Next week, we're going to continue on with navigating differences. We're not going to stay. We're not going to stay on communication. We're going to build onto more, onto the base that we put down tonight for communication. Next week, we're going to talk about another area of difference that we need to navigate, and hopefully, you'll be able to join us and help us as we share on that occasion. Shonda, final word.
Thank you for listening.
She's about to bust.
I'm gonna wait till we all
She's
camera.
about to bust. Thank you. Trust me, I'm about to get my whole lot more. God bless y'all.
Good night.
Until next week, take care.
Loquacious.